city or a town, of frown. The business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts, the underground sound in a city or a town, of frown. The business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts. The underground sound is the voice within, to give ear to the spirit and to flee from sin, to live for Jesus in the praise of him, by not selling out for the praise of men, to do whatever it takes, no matter what the cost, to keep pushing up the weight, carrying the cross, straight bench pressing sin, defend the word that lacks, and your best mention him, or then you're gon' die. Cause the underground sound in a city or a town, the business of a crown, of the living that abounds, and the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts, the underground sound in a city or a town, the frown.
Oh, guys, I've had the weirdest day over here. So my buddy Scott Davenport, known him for like 10 years. He goes out and writes a book. Now, I don't even know if Scott Davenport can read a book, but he decides he's going to go out and write a book. Write a book, allegedly. What's that mean? He got a few dollars saved up and he sent it to an editor? Okay, so he writes this book and he sends it to me and he asks me to, hey, man, can you help me get the word out? It's like, Scott, that's not really what I do. I don't really get the word out. Like, I have a different audience with my relationship. I mean, I would tell him, this is one of the worst books I've ever read. It's edited right. Most of the periods are where they're supposed to be. There's a lot of punctuation errors. I mean, this book is really bad. It's like remarkably bad. My mother used to play once a month. She would go and play a game called Bunko. And she would always come home, and I'd always make a deal with her and say, Mom, you got to wake me up when you get home. Just let me know that you're home. And she always would. And she used to win something called the Booby Prize. And I was too young to know what the Booby Prize was. All I know is my mom came home with a gift, and it was kind of cool. Well, when I got older, I found out that the Booby Prize goes to whoever plays Bunko and gets last place. If you're the absolute worst player, they give you a prize as a gift. My buddy Scott Davenport wrote the Booby Prize.
So I got another book for sale. It's called Scott Strong. It's also available on Amazon. You might want to check that one out.
Did you have a vision to start a gym? I mean, what was your aspiration?
No way,
what
dude.
were you thinking?
I mean, I didn't even have the confidence to be a personal trainer, dude. When I first got out of the Army, I took a personal trainer test. I thought I was all that because I'd been lifting for like 6 years or something like that. 6 years under my belt, and I thought I knew so much about lifting. I couldn't even pass the test, dude. Even though I know how to get results. Yeah. I can't tell people how to do that. All I did was my main vision was I wanted to be an athlete. So I focused on trying to be an athlete for years.
So you had that in your mind, though, to do bodybuilding. And
yeah, I always wanted to be built, you know, like the idea for the gym, you know, that didn't really happen until around 2009. I was 28 then. And then I started thinking about what it would be like to have a gym. Man, if I had my own gym, this is what I would do, you know.
Because all you're doing is training all the time.
Yeah,
right?
So then I was like, if I had my own gym, you know, and I was like, yeah, but that'll never happen because you got to have all this money to make this happen and all that stuff. And I didn't know, you know. And really all I needed at the time was just more self-confidence that I guess you can, you just piece it together one piece at a time. And that's what I did here at this gym. I pieced it all together, just one piece at a time. I just get more and more every year, you know. And then
when did you start competing?
That was 2004. I was 23. I didn't plan on competing until I was 24, but I was 23. I had gotten out of the Army and wanted to train for a full year before I attempted to compete.
And that was in bodybuilding?
Bodybuilding, yeah.
So
I won my
first
contest.
thing you did?
Yeah.
You won it?
I won my first contest, yeah.
What contest was that?
It was the Oregon Ironman Natural back in 2004. The 2004 Oregon Ironman Naturally. And
That's
I won
awesome.
the novice. I don't win the novice middleweight at 176. Remember, I'm 245 now.
Yeah, so you were 176 pound bodybuilder.
I cut down to 176.
Natural bodybuilder.
Yeah. And then when I got into strongman, I realized strongman was just the sport for me, because I didn't have to look a certain way. All that mattered was how much weight I could lift, if I could do it the fastest or the most. And I was like, so you can look however you want, but obviously the better shape you're in, the more weight you're going to be able to lift. So it's important to eat right so you can have energy to be in the right kind of shape to lift these weights, because you need to be fast, you need to have cardiovascular health. I mean, there's so much that goes into, you got to be strong everywhere. So there can't be no weaknesses. So that consumes you, dude. Like, I got consumed with it. All I cared about was being as good as I could be in every event and lifting as much as possible in every event, as fast as possible in every event, And then eventually you get to the point where I'm at now, where I'm like, I just can't do it like that anymore. My body just will not cooperate with me like that anymore. It just takes a toll, dude. Like I'm like, it's crazy too, because I never thought it would happen. I thought for sure I was going to be the one that would be the invincible one. But I think every athlete that is trying to fight for that, their supreme best, believes that about themselves, because you have to kind of push yourself to do all this stuff, and to compete in all these different sports at these high levels and lift all these weights but that also drove me to make all this gym happen, because I wanted to have my own spot, and I wanted to have the most unique spot, and I wanted to have training tools that no one else had, and I wanted to be the real deal. I wanted to be the guy that was Will, the guy that does like everything.
Yeah.
He doesn't just say, oh, I did this at this time in my life. He's always doing new things,
Yeah, so you did bodybuilding, and then
Strongman.
You went straight from bodybuilding. Did you ever do any more contests in bodybuilding, or just one?
I did 4 contests. I did 3 in a row, 3 years in a row. I won my first one, then I went open, light heavyweight, took 3rd my second year. Then I went open light heavyweight my 3rd year, where I was the heaviest guy on stage at 196, and I got 7th. And I was so mad and disappointed, because I trained so hard for that. My first full power meet was in 2014, actually. But I was totally elite. I totally elite in my first, and I won the show too.
Yeah.
So I had the heaviest total that day by 3 pounds. I lost in the squat by a lot. I lost in the deadlift by a lot, but my bench press was so much better than the other guys that gave me what I needed, and theirs was so bad in comparison to their deadlift and squat that I was able to pull out a 3-pound victory, dude. I won by 3 pounds. That's crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did Strongman build you up to powerlifting, or were you doing powerlifting training for Strongman?
I did squat and deadlift and bench and all that.
How did your training transition from bodybuilding
I still
to Strongman?
Yeah, okay. I used all of it. So I started training Strongman specifically with a buddy of mine in Monmouth. So it was like an hour-and-a-half drive every Saturday. So I would drive an hour and a half every Saturday, even with my infant daughter, back then in 2010. And I'd put her in the little square, I'd open it up and let her stay there while I trained. And I would train at Western Oregon University in the parking lot out there with my buddy Alex Whitaker. He was the strength coach at the time, and he had a bunch of strongman equipment there. And so I would come out there every Saturday for like 2 years. I drove up there to train, because I didn't have my own stuff. He had all the things that I really needed to get good at strongman. But here's the thing: the stones that he had. Oh no, he only had 1 stone. It was a 335-pound stone, and that's all we had. And so every time we did stones, it was like always at the end, after we did heavy log and heavy yoke, and then we would try to attack this 335-pound stone raw, cold every time. Like no warm up. There's no 250-pounder or 200-pound stone warm up. So that's when I saw the flaws of not having enough of the right equipment. So when I built this gym, I was like, I want to have equipment that I can accommodate the weakest person up to the strongest person.
And build them up.
Yeah, and have a lot of different goals. So, okay, so you hit the 95-pound stone, the 120 is next. The 120 stone, the 160 is next, or whatever, So it's like
you don't have to just hit a 330-pound.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of stone. I got a lot of equipment down there for that very reason, because I wanted to be able to, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it at a high level forever. I'm not going to be able to just lift that 400-pound stone every time. Eventually, I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. So I want to have smaller goals that are still challenging, like maybe hit the 350 for a double for as many years as I can keep that up, you know?
I found out about you because you were training Shorty Weichel, right?
Yeah, he was a client of mine for years.
You were training Shorty Weichel, and so then I started paying attention. I started watching videos, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, you had a video of you squatting 225 for 100 reps, and I'm like, who does that? I've never heard of anyone ever doing this in my entire life. Like, who is this guy? And then you're squatting, I think 315 for 50, 405 for
20. Those were. I did 455 for 20 as my heaviest ever 20 rep.
455 for 20, 500 for like 10, no belt, no knee wraps. I mean, you got tons of videos of that.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, I've never seen. You did a 500-pound deadlift for like 50.
Oh yeah.
I've never seen anything like it.
That was a hard workout. I remember what I felt like after that. Yeah, man. I was just. Because that was just what I'm good at, you know. I was just, you know, like I felt like I want to show the world what I'm good at as far as like weightlifting. I'm like, I might not be able to lift the heaviest single rep max, but I have some really good endurance, so I can fucking like grind out some really good weight for a rep.
Like the craziest muscular endurance of anyone I've ever seen.
So I was like, I wanted to, you know, the whole 225 for 100 rep video. That is what started all that. The 20 rep squats and the 50 rep squats. There's a guy, a pro strongman, who he squatted 405 for 20 reps one day, and he posted a video of it, and he was wearing a belt and everything, and I was like, and he was wearing all. I think he may even he was a pro strongman. He was a heavyweight pro strongman. He was over 300 pounds, like 320 pounds at the time or something like that. And I was like, I could do better than that. And I was getting ready for a bodybuilding show. This is in 2013. So I'm like 220 at the time. And I'm like, I can do better than that, and I'll beat your depth. And he was like, if you do that, I'm gonna squat 600 for 20. And I'm like, deal. 2 days later, I sent him the video. Hey, I did it. And he was like, holy shit. So he was shocked. I was supposed to get a sweater out of that, but I never got. Anyways, but then I was like, oh yeah, I was like, because he said that there was a buddy of his that tried it and failed at 98. And I was like, yeah, well, I'll do an even 225, and I'll make the 100, and I won't fail. How's that training going?
Training's going great. And we are live on the Underground Sound. I'm here with the Ultra Beast, Will Dinwiddie. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Just another day in the life. Things are going good, man.
Awesome. Real quick, I just wanted to tell anyone who's a competitor in any sport needs to get this book right here. This is Will's book. This is his whole entire story. We're going to talk about this right now. This is available on Amazon. It's really awesome. And I just love the message of it, you know, like your whole journey and what it brought you to. Kind of that message I think a lot of people need to hear, because people get so wrapped up in training or competing and stuff, and it's like there's more to life than that. Like, that was kind of like a crazy turn in your book that I was kind of surprised about, but I really liked it, you know, how like at the end you were like, I mean, it kind of ended not the way you wanted it to, because did you have injuries? Was it injuries? You're trying to win like nationals, right? In strongman?
Oh yeah, in strongman. Yeah, you know, I just I couldn't do 5 heavy events in a day anymore. I could do 3, and then by the time I hit number 4 and number 5, it was like I was working on fumes, you know. I just my body couldn't recover, so I couldn't really perform at what I could do in like practice. And practice, when I'm just doing like one heavy event after my workout or doing that and then doing a regular workout, I'm good, and I can do that about 3 times in a day. But 5, you know, my body just couldn't recover like it used to be able to. And and my knees felt like they were about ready to explode. So I mean, my body had just succumbed to the pressures of competing and trying to get to that next level. So I really the people that have made it to become pro, really their bodies are kind of uniquely made for it. A lot of them train and they train really hard, and they're really like honed in on what they're doing. Their life revolves around it, so they're really committed. But you also have to have the kind of genetics that can withstand the abuse. So if I'd have got the timing right, I could have done it in my late 20s and even early 30s, but I just didn't get the timing down. So I competed as far as I felt like I could go, and that was 37, and then I retired then. But I haven't stopped training. So, I mean, I'm always ready, uh, should I ever decide I want to do something different. I like to always be ready. I like to be strong and ready to take on any goal with 3 months or less of training.
Yeah, and I mean, your story starts out really, I think, uniquely and really interesting because you came from, I mean, you said you literally were 88 pounds and getting stuffed in trash cans, right? In the beginning. Like you were like a
Right.
little tiny guy,
Yeah.
right? Which
Can
is
you believe that, dude? If
no,
people look at me now and they're like, "No way," and I'm like, "Yeah, man. I mean, that's what sparked it all. Really, that's what really made me want to find something to be good at, something that I could help myself, so I could use it to help myself, and and I got treated like that for years. It wasn't until I was 15. I was, like you said, I was 88 pounds, and I was in high school, and I started going to the gym after school regularly. So I would be the first one waiting by the door, and I'd go until they made us leave at night. So I'd be the last one to leave every night. And I did that all throughout high school until I joined the military. And then when I was in the military, I did it there too. I In basic training, I would work out with mop buckets, and I did all that stuff that whatever I could find to add resistance to. I'd have somebody sit on my shoulders while I did push-ups and all that. So pull-ups, like you do what you can, dips, but anyway, the point is that I once I started training, I never stopped, and I just progressively got better and better as time went on. The recovery aspect just changed after I hit 30. It was like I started slowing down. And so 37, I feel like I was at the peak of my abilities. Like that's the strongest Will Dinwiddie I ever was at 37, because I was to the point where I wasn't my strongest bench, but I was closing in on it. Plus I had a 420-pound overhead, and I could deadlift 700 regularly, and I could 18-inch pull 1,000, and I still had mega endurance. I mean, when I hit that 100-rep squat, that 225 for 100 reps, that was in 2013. I was 32 when I did that, and I was prepping for a bodybuilding show when I did that.
wow.
So um, that was a and I didn't train for that. I just did it. I got a challenge issued to me, and 2 days later I did it. Something like that.
And so I like one of my favorite stories. It was on that podcast he used to go on. The guy that passed away
Oh,
recently.
Eric Rio, Motivation and Muscle.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories I've ever heard is when you were talking about that like what is it, the Chinese bamboo tree or something like that.
Well, yeah, man, Les Brown.
Les
So
Brown.
Les Brown's a motivational speaker, and I heard that on one of his videos where he talked about there's this giant. Okay, so there's this guy that planted this seed in the ground in his front yard, and he watered it every day for 5 years. Like watered dirt every day, and nothing happened. And his neighbors thought he was crazy because he was watering like it just seemed like a pile of dirt every day. And then one day after 5 years, it sprouted out of the ground, and then within 3 months it grew 100 feet. So he posed a question. So does it take 5 years and 3 months for the tree to grow, or 3 months? And it takes 5 years for the you got to like nurture it. So a lot of time and I struggled with this, but when I heard the story, it made me realize a lot of things, like, well, no wonder it took so long. There was other deep things that were being like built into me, and the same with everybody's weightlifting journey. It takes a long time at first because there's things you got to build into you, like you got to root in the discipline. You know what I'm saying? And the commitment. You got to root that in when nothing seems to be really happening. You got to stay focused on what the work, and then you can't you the more you put in, the more you get out. So after a while, all of a sudden you start to see the gains. Your numbers start to go up, and your body starts to change, and then you start to realize that yes, it is a matter of fact that it's all about consistency and how much intensity you put into it. So if you want to get the most out of your workouts, you got to go 100 every time. You got to do something that you've never done before every time. Like, it doesn't matter, max effort one arm push-ups, or max effort bench, or with what's the most weight you can push for 10 reps, or 12 reps, or even like 7 reps or 9 reps, odd numbers like that. You got to keep changing things up, and never doing the same thing over and over again. Like, you want to look for new ways to. It's just like life, man. You want that routine, but you need to make it different every time to keep excited enough to where you'll keep putting in 100%, because that's really the secret to that long-term growth is being able to give 100% every time. So that passion, you have to really love going in there and demolishing yourself in these exercises, and that's how you get better and stronger over time. And you got to challenge yourself and do things that are crazy, that seem crazy. You know what I'm saying? And keep doing it,
Yeah, and well, you said in the beginning you trained for like, what was it? You said you trained for like a couple of years and you didn't really get very much results, right? That was kind of like
The
correlation.
first year, I trained for 13 months straight and didn't gain any weight. And I thought that I was like, what the hell? I'm doing all this work and nothing's happening. By the end of the 13th month, I gained 10 pounds. It was
Wow.
like a miracle. I was almost 100 pounds. I was like 99 pounds. And
Wow.
I was like, oh my God. By the end of the second year, I gained 25 pounds. I was 25 pounds on top of the 10. By the end of the third year, it was 20 more pounds. So I was 145 pounds by the time I left for the Army. And then when I got out of the Army, I weighed 185. So I gained 40 more pounds during my time in the Army. And then from the time I got out of the Army till current, I've gotten as heavy as 270.
Now, did you go to the Army right out of high school?
Yeah, well, I actually graduated early from high school because I actually dropped out of high school my junior year, the first term, and then I was just wandering around every day, the streets, the railroad tracks. Really is how I found my way around town here in Eugene and Springfield. I used to hop on the freight train, and take it into Eugene, where it would slow down enough to where I could hop off and walk around in Eugene, and I'd take a train back to Springfield. I did that for that time period that I was basically dropped out, trying to figure out what I was going to do with myself. I was still working out during that time. I never stopped working out, but I was trying to find myself. And then I realized I needed to get out of this place and join the military. And the military required me to go back to school to finish my diploma. So they got me into this accelerated program at the college. And I did 2 years of school in 1 year. I went through summer school, and I graduated March 20th of 1999. Oh no, excuse me, February 19th I graduated, and I was in the Army March 20th of 99. And from that point on, it was like I always worked out though. I was the only guy that did that. So that's what got me really noticed, and what got me favor is because in the military, especially as a ranger and stuff, or even infantry,
physical fitness is valued. So the better you are physically, you're looked at it with more like leadership opportunities and things like that.
So you started infantry?
I was infantry. Well, I was an airborne ranger, so I went to airborne school. Then I volunteered for Ranger Battalion, so I went through their indoctrination course, and then I served as a ranger for about a year and a half, and then I left Ranger Battalion and I went to Fort Campbell, where I became air assault. And then during that time, I tried out for Special Forces. So I went to Special Forces selection, came back from that, and just decided that I didn't want to. Well, I got hurt, for one, but then I just decided, some things happened, and anyway, so I got out, and then I focused on wanting to be the best athlete that I could be, and so that was my main focus. Even when I was in the military, that's what I really wanted to do. Is I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to represent myself and what I was doing and who I was working for as an athlete. So every job I ever did, I always wanted to be the number one guy. The fastest guy to do whatever I was doing, whatever. So
Yeah.
it carried with me. So training, being better at training, made me want to be better at the things I was doing outside of training, work and school and things like that. I mean, I'm a straight A student now too because of the work ethic I developed from weight training. It's just transferred over. I feel like I got to be the best there now. I want to be the best in the class. I want to have the best grade at the end of the term. Every test, I want to have the best grade. Like every homework assignment, I want to get 100%. I'm like that. I'm just like, it's a competition style mindset, but you're competing with yourself. So it's like you're trying to see what you can actually accomplish. How far can you push yourself, and what's your real potential? And so make a big goal, go for the top, and then on your way there is when you're going to know, if you can make it to the finish line or not. You're not going to know from the very beginning because everybody starts out kind of the same. But if you make a big goal and even if you miss it, I didn't hit my strongman goal, but on the flip side, I became a professional arm wrestler trying to get to that strongman goal. And I'm a really good left-handed pro arm wrestler. So, I found out that I was really good at something else that I would never have known had I not been still shooting for that one goal. I used a different training technique and idea in my head to build my grip strength and to make me work it hard enough to compete in it. Because if you're competing in something, you're going to work harder. You're going to focus more at getting better at that. So that's what I did with arm wrestling. And turns out that I am actually better at arm wrestling than I was at strongman. So, I mean, that's the cool thing about training and pushing yourself is you don't know where it's going to how it's going to lead, where it's going to lead you to. I competed as an arm wrestler when I was 16 and broke my arm, my right elbow, and I never, I still broke to this day, but I broke my right elbow in an arm wrestling tournament, and I never thought I would ever arm wrestle again. I never wanted to. I never had that desire anymore after that, because I got hurt. And then I come back 18 years later, and I won the Amateur World Championships in 2015 with a team of guys. Man, we killed it. An Oregon crew. A crew of us from Oregon went down to Los Angeles and competed, and it was awesome, man. It was one of the best times of my life, one of the best memories of my life. And from that point on, I became pro, So it's been cool, it's just a different. It's just strength sports are weird because they take you in places. They take you to places you've never been. You could not go without doing that,
Yeah, that's well, I remember too, one of the things you had said was that you felt like in sports it didn't improve you when you tried to compete in sports, but when you did strength training, you always improved. And that was one of the things that drew you to it, right? Is it was something that made you a better athlete all the time.
Yeah, like team sports. I didn't like team sports that well because I always felt like if I'm giving my very best, the guys to the left and right should be doing the same. And when they're not, it hurts. It's like, well, I don't want to keep killing myself for somebody who's not going to return the favor, So I was like, well, if I'm going to kill myself, I can do that. I don't need a team of people to do that, I can do that on my own. And I know a way that feels better to me anyway, because I was like, the more effort I put into my body, the better results I get, the better I get, the better I grow, the stronger, the more weight I can lift. So, I mean, it wasn't really that hard of a decision. And I've done team things in between throughout my career or throughout being even as an adult. And, for whatever reason, I like the individual sport because it's how you end up at the end, is all a result of the effort that you put into it. So you can't say like your results are proof of the effort. So whoever gets first place put in the most effort, period, or second place, or whoever's in the top three, those guys, those people are the ones that are working the hardest, the most committed. So, and that's obvious, because, or else if you're not in that top three, then you didn't do as much. You missed a day that you shouldn't have missed, or you know what I'm saying? And I took it seriously as far as like, I cannot miss a single day. I can't miss a single meal. I can't miss a single workout. And I have to make sure that I'd go 100% every time, And so that part was the easy part. Not missing days was the part where I look back and I'm like, man, I spent like 15 years where I didn't go camping one time. I didn't go out, I didn't have friends. I didn't hang out with anybody. I just lived that gym life. And I got, a lot out of that, I learned a lot about myself, but at this point in my life, I'm more interested in like sharing all that information and trying to help other people do the same thing, learn how to get focused on their goals so they can make them happen, because I'll be honest, man, I've done more than I ever thought I would ever do, way beyond. I never thought that I'd be more than a strongman. I never thought I'd be a power lifter, or I never thought I'd go back to bodybuilding. I never thought I'd get in a cage fight, dude. You know what that's like, man. I never thought I would, but I always wanted to feel that rush, like that level of focus, like where it's like all eyes on you. It's time to show what you're made of, And so I like that pressure. I feel like I'm like kind of drawn to that way of living,
Now, when you had your fight, you said you were still just like lifting every day, but like training MMA on like Saturdays or something. What was the training like for that?
Oh, the training for the fight, man. I'll tell you this, dude. When I did jiu-jitsu practice, these guys loved putting me in their fucking best moves and stretching me till I fucking tapped and screamed and squealed, dude. These guys loved making me squeal, dude. People love making the biggest, strongest guy around squeal. But I learned a lot because of that, and I got tough, I got stretched out, and I got taken into I got taken out of my comfort zone in a way that I hadn't experienced in a long time, not since I was in the military. And so getting grinded on, by another person, somebody controlling you, I didn't like that. And so I knew that it was up to me to get good enough to prevent that. And so by the end of I trained for 3 months in jiu-jitsu, and I learned what I needed to learn. And I could get what I wanted because I did have the strength. I could force moves onto people that they couldn't get out of if I got it in the right spot. If I got a hold of it with both my hands, you weren't getting it back, and I could make things happen. You know what I'm saying? That's what I was trying to prove with me doing it anyway. I just wanted to say, hey, dude, really strong people are not the ones, that you want to like. They're the kind of people that you want on your side, like, because they can make things happen that a regular person, their technique, they may think they have technique, but it won't work. You still got to be strong enough to. You might be able to put a guy in a move where you could potentially break his arm, but if he's strong enough to pull it out, what are you gonna, how are you gonna deal with that? And if they put you in a move, they're going to be stronger than you, and if you can't muscle your way out, you could be in serious trouble. So I was trying to promote strength training. That's why I did that, dude. I didn't do it because I wanted to hurt nobody or nothing like that, but that's what I did. I hurt that guy. I tore his arm apart with a jiu-jitsu move. I used jiu-jitsu on him. I threw like maybe 3 or 4 punches, dude. The whole fight. I didn't throw a lot of punches, but that's because I didn't want to stand up with the guy because I knew he was better than me at that. I didn't want to take a chance. I was there to win. I wasn't there to put on any kind of show. I thought winning would be the show, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's funny because a lot of people always say like, oh, just because you're big and strong doesn't mean you can fight. But it's like, I know a lot of strength athletes and strong people, and it's like if they just learn a little technique, it goes a really far way. It's like, yeah, they might not be able to beat a black belt when they don't know anything, but you actually teach a guy that's as strong as you just a little bit, and you could hang with really high level guys. And I've seen it. You know, I had a buddy that was a 270-pound bodybuilder that started training jiu-jitsu with me, and it was like, if he got, which I think you won your fight with the Kimura, but if he got a Kimura on you, you could not get your arm back. You couldn't get your arm back. I mean, if he locked on your arms, there's no freaking way you're breaking his grips. And I'm sure that's how you were.
Because the strength.
Yeah.
He can hold it, and yeah, it's like they're like pistons. You turn into like this like machine and shit, dude. It's cool, man. And so that's what it's cool to be strong, man. It's useful in everyday life. It's useful to control like your own. To control your emotions, because like when you're strong, it requires a certain amount of effort to be strong. You have to put a lot of focused energy into the bar when you're working out, you know, whatever weight you're lifting. As long as you're pushing yourself, you got to focus on putting all that energy into the weights, and that's the only way you really get really strong, you know. So it requires a lot of focus. So you learn to have a lot of self-control, whereas you don't really see a whole lot of big guys getting in trouble, like weightlifters and stuff. You don't see weightlifters on TV getting in trouble, really, because that's how they take out their aggression. That's how they handle their mentality is lifting weights. It's good for your body, but it's also good for your mind, you know, and your soul. You know what I mean? It's, you know, you get to a certain point and it becomes spiritual. I feel like I turn into something different, there's a lifter, like Dorian Yates talked about how he said he'd be in a trance when he would be lifting. And sometimes I feel like that, where I'm like, not like I'm so focused and I'm so involved into this exact thing that I'm doing, that into exerting this effort in this way, that I'm like, nothing can break that. And I'm going to get what I want from it, because I'm like honing the energy in my body to give me what I'm trying to get, hit that goal for the day, you know. Maybe I'm trying to climb up the rope or something a couple times without my legs or something like that, you know. And like when I was like 260, I did that, and I had to hone my energy, you know, to like get myself tight enough to where I would stay tight every rep so I wouldn't tear something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
I did tear my lat a little bit up at the top. I just didn't know it until like 2 days later. But that's what I mean. It's like honing your body into this like mindset to where you don't feel anything. You just feel like all your energy is focused on the completion of the goal, or getting the job done, or whatever it is, you know. Like with lifting, it's like a minute or less of effort for me. So I'm like, okay, it's usually about 20 seconds or less of effort. Okay, I got to go really hard for 20 seconds or for a minute, or maybe with a heavy squat it might be 2 minutes, because I take my time on squats, you know. I don't rush those, just because I'm like, my knees are like, they're running out of cartilage or whatever. They're just on their last leg, so I'm trying to keep them as strong as I can for as long as possible before, you know, I'm hoping not to injure them. So I don't squat really fast anymore, and I don't squat very heavy very often, you know.
When you got out of the military initially, you went into bodybuilding first, though, right? Is that the first thing you competed in, was bodybuilding?
Yeah, man, that is. I started out as a bodybuilder because I wanted to be like Arnold, dude. I would look at these magazines of like in the 90s, you know. You remember in the 90s and 2000s, Flex magazine and Muscle Mag, those were like the those were like the bodybuilding magazines. Those are the only magazines I ever looked at, dude. And I looked at Mad magazines when I was growing up, Cracked and Mad, those like kid
Comic.
magazines, comic
Yeah.
magazines. Yeah, I looked at those for a long time, and then I got into bodybuilding magazines in like the mid '90s and early mid '90s, and I was like, I just loved body. I loved like seeing like the possibilities of what I could look like if I did what they did, if I worked out like that, and I ate like that. So I
Yeah.
love, yeah, that's so I mean that's how it got started, was bodybuilding. But I always liked trying to lift as much weight as possible. So that's where the kind of the strength training also began too. I just didn't really focus on it until I had a really crappy bodybuilding show back in 2006 where I took like 7th place, and I was mad at bodybuilding, so I left and went for strongman, and because I figured I was better at being strong anyway, and it worked out better that way for me.
Yeah. Well, you said that, and so that's different, right? In bodybuilding, you were talking about the first place guy's the best, but in bodybuilding, it's more of opinion. So you probably did work the hardest, from what it sounds like, how your work ethic was, but you still lost that last bodybuilding show, right? That made you want to go into strength.
Yeah, man, that did, because I was really I felt like I was I think I was the heaviest guy on stage at that time too, but I didn't have the leg development. I mean, I didn't have the genetics that these guys had, and then like you said, it's opinion. So I mean, I didn't have an issue with my back; it was just my legs. And so I was like, well, in strength sports, you don't have to look like anything; you just have to lift the most weight, and so your legs don't have to look like you know, they don't have to look all swollen up. They just have to be strong enough to move the weight. And so I felt like that was more my style, and I didn't have to worry about so much of like trying to make my legs big. And the thing is, when I started training, like when I was training like a bodybuilder, the heaviest I ever got was 205 pounds. When I
Wow.
started training like a strongman, I've gotten as heavy as 270. The
Yeah.
strongman training makes you big everywhere, and it makes you. And the thing is, if you do it right, and you mix it in with your weightlifting, it basically it eliminates all the weaknesses in your body. So eventually, you don't have weak muscles anywhere. They're all strong. You're strong everywhere from every angle. Doesn't matter what you're doing, any angle. You have strength there. And so strength is like it's also something that helps keep you from being injured in life. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a shield, kind of like armor. You need to always stay strong everywhere. And that includes cardio, because I've ran marathon before. I've ran a few of them, actually. 5 marathons and an ultra marathon and a bunch of half marathons. So you want to work that part of your conditioning too. The 100-rep squat was a marathon. I'll tell you that, man. I mean, I could feel when I think back to that day, like what I always remember is how I felt fat burning off of my face at like rep 60 and beyond. You know what I'm saying? Because it was intense, dude. It was so intense, and I
Yeah.
still can't believe I did it, because I look back at that and I'm like, I don't think I could do that. I would have to be offered I would have to be offered something big for me to even attempt something like that again, because that was so tremendous. I mean, I was messed up for like 2 weeks. I couldn't walk right. My back was messed up for like 2 weeks after that. So, I mean, I was so weak. The next day I came into the gym to train a client, and I went to pull a 25-pound plate off the leg press, and it fell right out of my hands because I couldn't support the weight. Once I took the full weight in my hands, my back couldn't support even holding 25 pounds.
Wow.
That's the next morning after I achieved that. I didn't know what I was going to feel like. And so when I experienced that, I was like, oh my God, that was like the workout of the century, dude. I was like, how am I ever going to replicate that kind of soreness again? And so I knew that was probably a once in a lifetime thing. But so I decided to change the goal and go for heavier weights with less reps. Like, what could I do for 50 reps? And I was like, I could do 315. and I did that. And did I tell you the story behind the 315 for 50? How I
Yeah.
did 2 sets of 35 before that.
Yeah, and then you went to a meeting.
I went to my lunch meeting, and then I came back, and I was more determined than ever, and I hit 50. I think I hit 50 with no belt too. I did it without a belt. 50 without a belt.
I think
Yeah,
that's
man.
what
That's
the
how I like to
was,
train.
to take the belt off or something so you could
Yeah,
breathe.
I like to train as much as I can without a belt to train my natural body, to train the ligaments around my spine, all the little the connective tissue and all that. Your bones, you're trying to get all those as strong as possible on their own before you start adding in equipment. And I lifted for 15 years before I started using any equipment. I was raw, completely raw. All I ever used was chalk and straps for 15 years. And then I started using knee sleeves and knee wraps and a belt and elbow sleeves and wrist wraps and that stuff, weightlifting shoes. That was at year 15 and beyond is when I started throwing in the equipment. And the thing about it is that stuff has kept me going.
Didn't
So
you started with Olympic style lifting, right? Is that like how you started out with Olympic weightlifting or in your training?
no, I didn't even know how to do an Olympic lift until 2007. I hired a
Oh,
coach. His name is Tom. I forget his last name, but he's a really well-known Olympic lifting coach here in this area, and he used to work at Ironworks, and he just coached Olympic lifting. And he had some girls that he had that were really good, that were like national champions and stuff. He was a great coach. Um, but I just went there for 5 months to learn how to become a better weightlifter by learning how to become more explosive through the hips. And that's what my purpose with training with that crew was to learn how to become more explosive so I could be a better strongman. And then that worked. The Olympic lifting did make me a better strongman, and it changed my whole style of training. I wrote my own programs for all these years, and so it changed my style of how I train. I was like, I need to do more sets of 5 and 3 and 2 and 1, and I need to do more of that kind of lifting. Anything more than 6, I can't. I only do in a competition I don't even train for anything more than 6. At that time period, I was like for about I don't know maybe shit because that was around 2007. So from 2007 to like 2000 till even probably till about 2018, yeah, 11 years. I trained not 6 reps or less, and I got stronger and bigger and all that in that 6-year time period. So that works. Training 6 reps or less will put on, I believe, the most size and strength and power. But you do need to mix it up sometimes and do 10 reps and 15 reps and max reps in a minute, things like that. Just, once a month or something like that, once every 2 months, just to change it up. And then, but your main backbone is like heavy strength training. And when something starts to hurt, you stop doing that exercise and you change it up with another one. So if you can't do bench press anymore, do board press. Do board press until you feel like you can stretch it deeper again. Whatever. But you never stop training. You just train around your issues. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think when you get a little bit older, that's the biggest thing for me has been, it becomes instead of like how do I get the best workout, a lot of times it's just how do I not get injured or how do I work around the injury. And it makes you way better though, because if you know how to navigate around those things, you just always keep improving.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what happens because yeah, you're right. The older you get, the more injury prone you are, and it's just because of wear and tear. And it's not just it's gravity too, because we age from gravity constantly pulling us toward the ground. That's a constant stretch against our body and our bone structure and all that. And then the sun is constant, the rays from the sun, they age us. They make the body deteriorate faster. And so you got these other, because we're these organic forces that you have no real control over. You're just trying to do the best you can to keep going after a certain point. My strongest years, I believe, have been my 30s. But my best recovery year was 27. When I was 27, I recovered every workout. I got stronger every workout that whole year. So that was my best year. I was 27 years old, and then it slowed down when I got to 28 and 29. But I peaked out at 27 as my best year for recovery between workouts.
Do you think possibly though some of that might have just been that you were getting so much stronger that it just requires more recovery when you're lifting more weight?
No, because yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Good call. Yeah, you're right, because the heavier weight you lift, the more energy it takes, the more muscle you tear up, and the longer it takes to
And you got way
recover those
bigger. I mean, you got way bigger.
Yeah, that definitely plays a role. I feel like when you get to a certain point, that's when it kind of reverses a little, where you can get away with only working out 3 or 4 days a week, because as long as you're lifting heavy enough and hard enough, you're getting plenty out of that. You're tearing yourself up because you know how to now, and you've reached your body's maximum potential, and you know how to keep it by staying with that intensity. Mark Wechter told me that. He said your program is nothing without intensity. So the more intense you are, as long as you're 100% every time, you're gonna get results. So always aim for 100, but don't ever let yourself go less than 90. Let's say, you got to maintain that control over yourself and that commitment. And you got to push it. And if you're pushing it all the time anyway, you don't know how to do anything less than that. So I don't really need to say that to anybody in particular. If you're already giving 100%, then you just need to maintain doing that. And if that's what you do, it's going to be hard to give less than that, because anytime you do give less than 100, you feel it, and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Do you experiment with your clients and stuff? Because for me, a big thing, which is it's the opposite of a lot of people preach volume, and for me, it was cutting back volume that helped me get stronger. That's what really helped me more than anything. Is when I cut my volume down, then my intensity went way up and my results went way up. Because when I tried to work out like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I used to do the Arnold Schwarzenegger workouts, like 6 days a week. I'd work out twice a day and everything, and do my body parts twice a week. I just would run myself into the ground, and then but I noticed that some people, they get great results that way. One of the most jacked dudes I ever met in my life, this guy John Lewis, he did everything every day, and he was just huge. I mean, he looked like freaking Arnold, man. This guy was just this jacked dude, and but that's like genetics, right? I mean, do you notice that with people? Everybody, you got to do something different, volume wise and frequency and all that stuff.
Yeah, man. That's a fact. Everything works some of the time, but nothing works all the time. No training method will work all the time, and results vary between the individual, man. Some people are going to have an easier time getting strong, but have a hard time getting lean. There's trade-offs. We all have our abilities physically. Some people are more flexible than others naturally. Some people seem to never get hurt, no matter how bad they lift or how much weight they lift. And then some people, they bend over to tie their shoes and they're always getting hurt. So it's that's individual, the gains, but as long as you're training consistently, you're going to get gains, even if you don't have genetic potential or you don't have the genetic ability. You're still going to get better. So it's like brushing your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth are going to rot. If you brush them, you're at least going to slow that process down. So it's like the same thing with training. If you train regularly, even if you're not a genetic freak, you're going to get better. You're going to look better. You're going to feel better, and you're going to be stronger. You're going to build muscle, dude. So it's like why would you not want to do that?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe it's just because it's hard. Some people don't do it. Don't live the lifestyle.
It's not hard. It's well, I guess you're right. Maybe for some people it is hard. It's hard to break away from your comfort zone, is what it is, and and um, and that's something that the individual has to work out within themselves. All we can do is continue doing what we like to do, and hopefully being a good example to others that are on the fence or that are like, man, I really want to try that. I really want to do that. Well, I also live with the idea that this could be my last day. Um, not of any fault of my own. I could just have a heart attack and not know it, not know that my arteries are clogged and have a heart attack. Or I could be driving and somebody could crash into me that I don't see coming. So I just feel like I'm going to make sure that I do all the things I like to do. And I like lifting. I like feeling strong, and I like having muscle. And I also like doing my schoolwork. I like being smart and learning. I also like spending time with friends and doing stuff like this, and um, doing stuff with my daughter. So I mean, I like to do a lot of things. So I do a lot of things. Like I know you do a lot more than just lift and cage fight and wrestle and all that. So I mean, there's other parts of you, and so I like to be balanced, and lifting helps me to be balanced.
Yeah. No, I actually experienced when I got back into strength training, you know, this is how I got back into strength training, because I didn't strength train for a long time because I was just doing MMA, and my joints couldn't handle it really, and I got pneumonia, and that was like 3-4 years ago, something like that. And I went to the gym and I was sparring this like pro boxer. And I just was getting my ass beat because I couldn't breathe. I mean, I had pneumonia, and I was like, "What am I doing?" Like one day, I was just like, "What am I doing?" And I was like, "I can't do this anymore." And so I stopped training, and then for a while I was working. I was moving. I was installing furniture at the time. I was working long days, and I'm like you. I've been training since I was like 11. And I've never stopped. But for this short period of time, I wasn't training. And I noticed I started getting extremely angry, extremely frustrated. And I mean, I felt like I was like a mean person. Like I was like driving around and I would just be thinking, I hope someone does something so I could just get out of the car and smack them around. Because I just felt all this.
Didn't have a release.
Yeah, I wasn't getting it out. And then that's when I started lifting. I started going to the gym like a couple days a week, and because I could do like a couple reps because there's no cardio, and I just did a couple reps, and I hadn't worked out in like really seriously with weights at all for like 8 years, and I was like way stronger than I ever was. I was like so strong I couldn't believe it, and that's what inspired me to see what I could do.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Dude, what did that 800-pound squat feel like?
You can't breathe, bro. You can't breathe with that much weight on your back. I don't know. You can't take a breath.
Oh, you couldn't catch a breath before you started?
No, it's like, it's so crushing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just impossible to breathe. It's the most horrible feeling in the world.
What about what did it feel like against your body and when you went down and up? Did you feel like your knees were going to take it, or were you afraid that they were going to fall apart?
No, it felt better at the bottom probably than standing upright. Standing upright felt the worst. My little dark secret, Will, and I don't know if you've ever messed around with this, but I had a single ply suit on. So I don't know if you've ever used one of those.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought you did that raw.
No. I couldn't do that raw. But I just that was just in the gym anyways. I've never competed in powerlifting or anything.
Yeah, but you got like a 550 bench though too, right?
Yeah, that was raw though. So that was different.
Crazy, dude. You did a 500-pound incline press too, didn't you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a 400-pound strict press, like for reps, seated press.
No reps. No, I didn't do reps with it.
Strict press was 400 pounds overhead, seated overhead.
Yeah, you said you did what, 425?
Yeah, but that was a push press.
You did those Viking too, right? How much did you do on the Viking?
422.
Yeah, I remember you're doing. I mean, the crazy thing is though, you doing those reps, because like I tried the 225 for 100 thing, and I could only do like, I think it was like 35, and it was like so unbelievably painful on my back. I was like, this is not even possible. Like I can't even. I felt like I couldn't even just keep the weight on my back anymore. I was like, I have to get this freaking weight off of me, because it's freaking just destroying me. And that's why, to me, like, it's so crazy how you're able to do those insane reps. You know, I mean, I did 225 on the bench for like 50,
Wow,
which,
that's
you know,
impressive.
but I kind of just find a rhythm. I feel like, you know, it's like I could find this spot, and it's almost like the weight's just flying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like a bodybuilding style. But like squats though, yeah, I don't even know. Probably, I mean, I've done probably 100 reps with 135, but it's just so light that doesn't even mean anything.
It's weird, isn't it? The different kind of strength that we have. Like you can max out at a heavier weight, but I can hit an endurance workout that you're not able to get. It's weird like that. Arm wrestling is the same way, dude. It's like I can beat you, you can beat this guy, but this guy can beat me, and I can't beat him. But you can beat him, and I can beat you, but I can't beat him. So that's kind of like what strength training. Whoops. That's kind of like what strength training, like what I got from it, you know, is that we all have like these special abilities. You know, some people are really good at like the sumo deadlift, you know, and then some people are really good at a conventional deadlift, and then some people can bench press a lot, some people can curl a lot, some people can run really fast, some people can jump really high, you know. So once I started understanding that there's no way any one person can be the best at all those things, and then I realized, I'm like, you just got to be the best that you can be. That was around that time period when I did that squat. That was when I started realizing that I was trying to be like other people, and then I realized when I accomplished that, I realized, I was like, you're meant for something different, you know, like you have a different ability that you need to, like, you know, look at, and you need to seek that potential out, you know, within yourself. And so that's what I've been doing ever since. You know what I mean?
That's great, man. And you know, probably the only other person who I would think maybe did the 225 for 100 is Tom Platz. I think maybe did that. And and you know, when I was 19, I got my personal training. I wanted to be a bodybuilder too, but I didn't want to take steroids. You know, I did a teenage competition, and I saw these guys backstage, and they were so freakishly, like, just gnarly looking, and I felt like I looked like a swimmer, you know, like I was like, I look like a freaking little like a water polo guy. And these dudes were all freaking, you know, like you could tell they were on tons of drugs, and I was too scared to do it. So I was like, well, what really attracted me, just like you, I was into the magazines. I was a huge Dave Draper guy. I thought Dave Draper was like freaking awesome, and Arnold, and I just wanted to live the lifestyle. Like I just wanted to look good, feel good, be healthy, work out. I loved working out. I love the emotional outlet thing, you know, element of it. I really like reading Dave Draper's, you know, he writes about training, and it's like this kind of like you're saying, like a spiritual experience kind of. And you know, because it ties into all that, your emotions and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's expression kind of. But I went and I said, okay, well, if I'm not going to do bodybuilding, which I really wanted to be Mr. Olympia, but
oh wow,
Yeah, that was my dream, but I knew I was like, I'm not willing to do what it takes, you know. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll be a trainer. That's the other logical choice. So I went to get my personal training certification through the ISSA, International Sports Science Association, and I go to the training. It was in San Francisco. It was like 3 days. You know, you train for 3 days and then you test. And the guy running it was Tom Platz. Tom Platt,
Wow.
freaking instructor, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Oh my god, this is freaking Mr. Universe or whatever," you know?
Yeah, I
And
think he took second in Olympia.
yeah,
He took second place in an Olympia, I think, to to Arnold in a 1980, maybe. Maybe that
yeah,
was the year. I can't remember, but something like that. Yeah, he was still really good.
yeah. He had those legs, man. And but so this was the big takeaway when I got certified was he talked all about muscle fiber type, and he said, you know, you have white muscle fiber type, pink, and red, and you can tell which type you are by maxing out your reps at 80% of your 1 rep max. So he said, if you do an exercise and say you could bench 100 pounds, and then you put 80 pounds on the bar and you rep it out, if you could get 2 or 3 reps only, you have white muscle fibers, and so you're more explosive, more for powerlifting. If you
Oh,
could do
wow.
if you could do like 8 to 12, you have pink, which is more in the middle, which is like more for bodybuilding, where you'll typically gain more size. And if you could do 20, then you have red muscle fiber types, which is endurance. And I tested all those things, and I definitely, like you were talking about how I could lift really heavy. I've always like with military press or bench press or deadlifts, I've always found that if I could do 2 reps, I could still do like 50 to 100 pounds more for one. Like
Wow.
always, like
Wow.
you know what I mean? Like I'll be like, oh, I could barely do 2 reps with this weight, and it's like, but I could still lift 100 pounds more for one. Like, you know, I just
Yeah.
can't do the reps.
Yeah.
Um, at,
Crazy, man. Wow.
at least with those, my legs are more, I think, in the middle because I could do, you know, my legs. I feel like I could get some more reps with my legs, but not on those, you know, bench or like deadlift, particularly deadlift. That's the one where it's like I could always lift way more weight for one.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
reps.
You know, I mean, have you heard of that before? Or those muscle fibers and all that stuff, or because he also said your different muscles could have different muscle. You're not going to be the same. Like I think I have endurance muscles for my arms. I couldn't be an arm muscle.
Oh, yeah,
There's no.
yeah. No, yeah, what he's saying. Tom Platz, I don't know if you know this, but he has 2 master's degrees. He's really smart. He's a smart guy. Um, he has a degree in business and uh shoot, I can't remember. I think it's kinesiology. Um, anyway, all I know is he's pretty intelligent, you know. And So what he's saying is true. Yeah, dude, your body, it's crazy the abilities that your body has. Like you might be really strong in one way and really weak in another, or like you might have more power in one certain type of movement and then more endurance in another. It's cool. Like that's what I find so intriguing about lifting and what's so fun and what's kept me going all these years is because I don't know what's my best reps for 100 on the curl. I mean, I never even thought about that until just now. So I'm like, I wonder what that would feel like, like, so it's like taking your body to new places. The only way you're going to know what you're capable of is by going out there and doing it and testing yourself and continuing to test yourself every day over and over again, in different ways, and that's what working out is.
Have you ever tried a suit, Will?
I tried a bench shirt once, but because um, it hurt so bad, I got more from. I couldn't get it on. I don't think it was the right size or whatever, but it like cut into me where it like it cut me and it like was drawing blood. So I couldn't get comfortable with that shirt on, so I benched better without it. And then I bought a Metal King deadlifter in 2010 for the national championships, the Strongman national championships, and they didn't size it right, so I couldn't get it on right. So I do better. I have not yet found. I've tried a suit once. Oh no, I had another single ply suit that I tried on, but it felt like it was going to rip my tailbone off when I sat down. So I couldn't. I lifted better without equipment. The only equipment that I will say that's made a difference is knee sleeves and knee wraps and a belt. Those three things definitely make a difference. And wrist wraps for like really heavy overheads with like an axle or like just anything really heavy, wearing wrist wraps. Those make a difference. Those help me lift more weight. You know, I've gotten 100 pounds out of my belt alone on a deadlift. So I
Wow.
mean, that tells you a lot, you know. So, yeah, that equipment, I feel like it does a better job of securing me. But then again, you know, like maybe if I got the right size, I would feel like I could get more out of I would squat with a squat suit if it helped me keep lifting heavy, you know.
I was talking. We did a podcast with me and Pete did one with Greg Panora, and he was saying, you know, you can actually you'll have more longevity, and it's not as hard on your body, but you actually can lift more with a suit, you know. And all those strongman guys, they use them now. That's
Well,
part of
yeah, Hafthor just pulled that 501. He had a suit on.
yeah. I think it does have to be probably looser. You know, you don't want one. It sounds like the one you were using was too tight. If it feels like it's gonna break your freaking tailbone
I
off.
couldn't even get it on. I couldn't even get it up my legs. So it was like, well, how is this going to help me?
Yeah.
I have an odd shaped body too, so I think that everybody's body should, if you get a suit, you should be fitted for one. You should get a custom suit if you're going to get one. So if I ever do it again, I'm going to buy, get a custom one.
Yeah. It might give you a whole nother, run.
Well, yeah, well, we'll see. I never thought about that, but I did my heaviest ever squat onto a box. I did a box squat a while back, and I hit a 735. That felt good. I tried to do 765 just to feel what it would feel like, because I was inspired by your 800-pound squat, man. So I was like, I want to see if I could fucking how far I can go, So I tried 765. Just sitting down to the box. I never, I didn't post a video or anything like that because I couldn't get up with it. It buried me, like I controlled it all the way down to the box, but I felt lucky that it didn't blow my knees apart just sitting down with it. So I didn't even attempt to push up against it. I let the safety bars take it, and the pressure I felt when I attempted 765. I mean, it literally on the way down, I felt like, please, it was the first time I ever did a lift that I was ever scared that I could permanently hurt myself, like in my back or my knees. I was actually scared on that lift, and I'd never been scared on any lift I've ever done before. And that one, squatting a heavy ass weight, dude, that is such a freaky thing, dude. Because if things go wrong, it's gonna go wrong really bad. If your knee goes out or something like that, you've just torn your quad or your knee apart. That's gonna require surgery. You're not gonna get away with just a strain. Especially the older you get, like we are, like it's gonna tear off. So.
Yeah, it's definitely probably the scariest lift. I mean, even though probably bench is the most dangerous, I think, just because you're more likely to get a pec tear than probably any other injury.
Oh yeah, man. I did a board press with 500 pounds. I hit a 484, 220 kilogram board press, like a few months back, and I tried a 500, and I almost tore my pec off. If it wasn't for the board stopping the bar from going any deeper, I would have torn my pec completely off. And I was lucky that I had a spotter there that day too to help me get the weight re-racked because I was
Oh,
pinned. I was pinned underneath that weight. And I was just like,
you would've
fuck,
died.
dude. And I was thinking, fuck, dude. And Scotty pressed 550. I was like, damn, man, you got some strong shoulders and pecs.
I think that's always been my strongest thing. It's weird. I always felt like my deadlift was, but after I got older or whatever, and really when I figured out the squat, it was when, because all my whole life I always squatted high bar because of Tom Platz, and I think that's what made my deadlift strong. Like my deadlift was always really strong, but then once I figured the low bar out, to lower the bar a little bit, my squat went way up. That's when my squat just took off. But then my deadlift stopped because I think it was transferring. My squats were actually making my deadlift. But then once I got rid of the the high bar and went low bar, my deadlift just stopped. And that's the one thing I could never figure out was the deadlift, because the high intensity training that I do, it doesn't work for the deadlift. And I worked with Pete Rubish. He trained me, and that's how I figured it out, because I did less intensity. I had to do kind of less intensity on the deadlift.
Yeah, hold back a little bit, you mean?
Yeah. That was the one. Because what I was doing is I was trying to do max reps all the time, and it just would
Your central nervous system was shot.
Yeah.
This was shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would wreck me, and then I couldn't progress though. I would get stuck at these rep numbers, and I could not, get past it. And then when I trained with Pete, he had me I was actually deadlifting 3 times a week, dude.
Oh, but you were doing lighter than usual, just developing volume.
And
Volume to develop that lower back strength.
It was volume, and it was but it wasn't that light though. It was kind of like I had like a medium, a light, and a heavy day, but it wasn't like super heavy or whatever. But it was like a lot heavier than you would think for training 3 days a week, for sure. Like I was like, dang, I can't believe I'm doing this, But that was the one thing where I had to do something beyond my own knowledge. Like I couldn't figure it out. I needed help. And that's where I worked with Pete, and he got me up. I mean, I got way stronger working with him.
Yeah, I saw those videos, man. You like progressed really well, quickly. So whatever he was telling you was working.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's what you got to do, right? Is you got to go to, like you said, you hired an Olympic coach to get those results you want. You got to go to an expert.
Yeah, every time. Eventually, I mean, you can keep spinning your wheels, but that becomes painful after a while. So when you think that you know what you don't know, when you think you know it all, and then you're not getting any better, and then you go see somebody and they adjust you just like a little bit, like this small little adjustment, and then before you know it, you're having PRs like you never had before, and you're like, oh my God, because it takes somebody from the outside. You can't see yourself outside the frame, if you're in the picture. So it takes somebody else from the outside to kind of look at you and kind of and an expert, somebody that does it just like you, that loves it like you. You can't just grab anybody. You gotta grab somebody who knows what they're doing and knows what to look for, and that can spot the weakness and it can also provide the answer and as far as the exercises to strengthen the weakness. That's how I look at it. If I look at somebody and I'm like, hey, like the weakness is here, these are some exercises that you can do to strengthen that. Because if that matches with if you get the weakness to match your strengths, then you're really going to be strong. You're going to be lifting that extra 5% more or 3% more, whatever it is, whatever it equates to. Sometimes it's 10%, and 10% is a big improvement, especially when you've been lifting for more than 10 years or 20 years, like if you get a 10% improvement, that's huge. And so like training with Mark Wechter, he got me like 30% stronger, man, just by technical improvements. So, that guy helped me go farther than I ever thought possible. He made me believe I could be a heavyweight strongman champion, and I did it. I did it a few times just to prove that it wasn't just, I didn't get lucky. You know, I was an open champion as a heavyweight, and that was because of Mark cleaning me up, refining me, you know, refining my technique and showing me what I was really capable of, and then going out there and doing it, man. It's great when you can make your body move the way you train for, and and it's kind of defying, you know, like it's like lightweights shouldn't be beating heavyweights, you know, but it's cool when you can do it. You know what I'm saying? Or it's cool when you can squat 800 pounds or bench 550 pounds. I mean, that's huge, man. I mean, that's a really rare gift, you know. So it's like, and when you take it to the max like that and show what should prove to yourself what you're really capable of, you know, that's what it's there for, you know. That's what those talents are there for. They're there to get you to work as hard as possible to develop those to their maximum level, but also to understand that to develop yourself to the max level requires all your weaknesses being developed to the max level too, you know. That's what weightlifting is so fun for, because it's like there are so many different angles to try to be good at, you know, and so many different rep ranges and supersets and giant sets and all these different ways that you can make weightlifting hard. It's endless. There's an endless possibility. So you should be doing that every day, pushing yourself in different ways, testing your endurance for a couple months, then going back and testing your max strength in certain rep ranges for a couple months, you know. You should be constantly like going through this giant cycle of all these different exercises and training methods and mixing them up and making your own out of it. You should have a lifetime's worth of gains available to you. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think I told you before that, like, I don't know why, but like I always loved strength training. It's my favorite thing, you know, is strength training. But competitively, I don't know why, I was just never really drawn to it. I was more drawn towards, I like MMA. I like competing in MMA more. But I don't like training in MMA as much as I like, you know, training in strength. So it's interesting just because, like, I know I'm strong, but I've never competed in powerlifting ever. And, you know, I wonder how it do, for one, but also, you did. And what was your reason? What did you compete in powerlifting to improve your strongman as well? Or did you just want to see what you could do and get some
Yeah, I
numbers?
wanted to see what I could do. I wanted to see what I could do. And I wanted to start. I wanted to like diversify myself. I wanted to prove that what I was capable of to myself in a max squat, as I'd never really done it. And I wanted to see what I could do in competition where it was judged, where I had real judges watching me and all that. And then, yeah, for me, it was just strong. I needed something more. Strongman was becoming kind of the same thing over and over again. So I needed to keep myself boosted for strongman. So I was like, I want to try powerlifting. Then I got into Moss wrestling, and then that got me into arm wrestling, and then I was like, arm wrestling got me into cage fighting. You know, getting all up in someone's face, arm wrestling somebody down. You know, like that made me feel like, all right, I'm ready for the cage. I'm ready to do a cage fight. You know, it's something I'd always wanted to try, and um, and I was so excited, dude. I mean, I couldn't wait to get in the cage, man. I mean, but it took months of buildup for me to feel that way, because the week before the fight, I was thinking about, oh shit, what happens if I get my ass kicked in front of all these people? I was having nightmares of getting beat up in front of everybody. And you
Really?
know what? It woke me up in the middle of the night, and I would be like, that ain't going to happen, because I'm going to make sure today's training is top notch. And that motivated me to make sure that I was focused on my training. And so when the time finally came, I remember when the stare down for the weigh-ins and all that, you know, I could tell my opponent was nervous. You know, I could tell that his face was shaking at me, you know, like his eyebrows were, he couldn't control them from shaking and all that. And because I'm an athlete, you know, and he wasn't fighting athletes, he was just fighting like guys that did karate when they were kids or something, and thought that shit would work in real life in a real fight, and and they weren't. He never experienced going against a real beast, somebody who like trains to win, and so yeah, and we go back to the training, the jujitsu, where those guys messed me up all the time. I learned so much from that, though. I got so tough and so strong from being cranked on by all these different people. And then the stand up, like I trained with professionals for the stand up. And so, I got cracked once too. And so I knew what it felt like. And I was ready, dude. I was ready to get beat up if that was going to be the result. I was ready to take that. And I was okay with that. So I think that was the reason why I was excited to be in there, because I was okay with losing and losing badly if that was the case. Because as a competitor, I can understand when somebody's that much better, to give him the respect. But I also knew that he was going to have to be really good to be able to do that to me, because I wasn't just going to take that from anybody. And so when, I could tell that he was scared when we were in there, dude. But that also, I fed off that, like I was like, yeah, that's right. You should be intimidated, like I would be intimidated if I had to take me on, like, because of what I know, because I know that because I know how far I'm willing to go, so it's like, so anyway, weightlifting took me on a journey, man. I wrote a book, and with your help, I got it published. You know what I'm saying? And then, now I'm back in school, chasing after other things, other goals and stuff. And I'm continuing to keep my body strong. And, I'm just, I haven't stopped lifting or anything like that. I just retired because it was time to stop focusing all my effort on competitions and the training preparation that is required, and chase after other forms of success, like education and the kind of role model I want to be for my daughter and stuff, So I want her to see there comes a time when certain things in your life have reached their peak, or and it's time to switch and do something else. And that's okay to do. And when you do it, there's no looking back. You're just moving forward into the new things that you're doing. And if you want, you can still play and dabble. And that's what I do. I use training. I use those strongman workouts just to, keep myself. They're good workouts, and they remind me of how much I love strength training. Ultimately, I lifted for 9 years before I did my first bodybuilding show. I lifted for let's see, it was 2005 that I did my first strongman show. I lifted for 9 years before I competed in strongman. So I was already lifting like a beast before I even started competing. And so it's the same way. I don't need to prove anything anymore. That's already in me to lift like a beast. I like doing it. I like being strong, whether I have a competition or not, So, I ain't ever going to stop pushing myself. It's just, I needed to get away from competing. So, cause that's a lot of pressure. You probably understand when you have a fight coming up, the weeks leading up to it is a lot of pressure. You're fine tuning things. And then the months prior to that, you're doing all the meat and potato work, the grinding and shit, So it's like, it's stressful, and it requires a lot of mental energy and time. And so, it took away from me, doing other things, which I don't regret. But what I've learned now is that I'm using that same mindset and using it in other areas like school, my business, my gym and stuff, and my daughter, and so I mean, um, strength training is like definitely like I feel like it's something that I just don't understand why everybody is not doing it. It only enhances everything in your life, so.
Yeah. It's interesting just to backtrack a little bit, but because if I imagine myself, if I would say, if I was like, oh, I'm going to fight Will, you would definitely, you'd be thinking, this guy could squat 455 for 20 reps, like, what is going to happen, right? Like, there's kind of that what is going to happen factor, I think, that's where I could see where that guy was scared, because you don't really see too many fighters that strong. And I've had the same kind of thing happen. I think I told you when you were at my house. I've had I think 6 opponents pull out on me. My last like 6 times I tried to fight, it was like
Wow.
right before the fight, everybody they cancel. So
They find out how strong you are, or they see a video of you lifting weight.
I think it's when I started posting videos where I'm benching 500 pounds and stuff. People were like, "No, I don't want to find out. I don't want to chance it." I don't
Yeah,
want
they
to
don't know what kind of damage that can cause.
Yeah, I think I gotta pull all the videos down. Yeah, and keep
Yeah,
them.
no doubt, man. Yeah, that's what happened to my last. I was gonna fight one more time, so I signed up for another one, and the guy didn't make weight, and he admitted to me privately that he was intimidated. He knew that I was really strong. He knew that I was a lot stronger than him, and he was afraid of getting hurt. And so I was like, "That's cool, man," because that's probably what would have happened. And I'm cool. I'm cool that it didn't happen. I'm cool that it didn't have to go that way. Because then I realized I'm like, I don't need to prove it. I already know that I'm capable of hurting somebody if I need to. So, and I don't think that I'll ever need to. So that's a skill that I really don't need to work on if I don't think I'm really going to ever use it. So it's like I want to work on like staying strong and keeping a few handful of tools in the toolbox. But I don't compete in MMA, so I don't need to develop myself to compete against other people that are to compete in that sport.
Yeah,
Because for one, you got to really like that. And I'm, to be honest, both times it took a lot of preparation for me to get mentally in the mindset that I was okay with getting hurt and that I was okay with hurting somebody. Because it just kind of went against what I'm about. I'm like, I don't want to hurt nobody and I don't want to get hurt. I like my teeth and I like pleasant interactions with people. I don't want to the fight game is not when you're in there, it's you don't like that person in those moments. I mean, you can't, like you have to be like, this is my enemy and I have to defeat them, kind of thing. It's like war. And
yeah.
then when it's all over, then you can be cool.
I think for myself, like when I got into it in the beginning, it was I believe it was just such a adrenaline rush for me, because like you said, you get to that point when I first fought, it was all because I had that acceptance of I don't care what happens, like you said, that was kind of the key, because I
Yeah.
was like, I don't care, I'll get my ass kicked, but I'm gonna go down swinging in this thing, and then I won, and then I won a bunch of fights. And then it was weird because I stopped getting as much adrenaline because it wasn't as scary for me or
Yeah.
whatever. It wasn't as threatening. And then I had to go towards learning the skills more, and that was difficult to go through. Like it was like this. I don't. I don't know. It wasn't that experience that I really liked.
It sounded like it had an effect on your motivation.
It did. I actually wanted to stop, but I was so deep in it. It was like
Mhm.
kind of part of my identity. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna go all in with this instead. And that's what I did. I went all in with it, and it was difficult, but I did. I took a lot of things from strength training and applied it. Like I always knew with strength training, it never bothered me to miss a weight or anything because I always knew like you work up to 150 pound bench press, you get stuck for a while, you break the plateau, you go to 200, you get a plateau, you work through it, you figure it out, you go to 250, and it just never ends. And just because you miss 200 pounds, it doesn't mean you can't bench press 500 pounds. Like if you keep going, you're always going to break those plateaus and you're going to be
Yeah.
able to achieve that high level. And it was the same way for me with MMA. Like jujitsu, I didn't like jujitsu in the beginning. I like just punching, and and I got my ass kicked on the ground a few times, and that's where I was like, I need to learn this, and I didn't really like it, but I committed myself, and I went against, I had high level instructors, and they were kicking my ass, and it was horrible. I mean, it was like awful to go through, but it was like I always knew I was like, I'm gonna break through this plateau, and then I'll just be at that higher level, and that's exactly what happened. And when I went to those other levels too, it was like, it was funny because when you're getting beat all the time, you're just wondering like, why is this happening? Or like, I should be better, I should be able to beat this guy or whatever. But then it's funny because then when you get to that higher level, someone else comes along and they think they should be able to beat you, and you're like, dude, you're crazy, you just started this, like there's no way you're gonna beat me.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Like being on the other side is really funny. Huh?
I've gotten that so many times. So
Yeah.
many times, athletes, like I'll start training an athlete, and they get good enough to where maybe they win their first contest, or they win a couple contests, and then all of a sudden they think, oh, I'm a pro now, and it's just like, no, man, no, because you got to be able to at least beat me, and there's no way that you're even ready to do that yet. I'm like, you think that I just spent my whole life giving my best to just let to for somebody that's just starting to be able to come in here and crush me. It doesn't work like that. Even Hapthor started modestly for in comparison to what he's built himself up to. Um, in comparisons, his basically he started out with a 660 deadlift, and somehow he was able to put like almost 500 pounds on his deadlift. So it's like you know everybody, you have to start and you have to earn that. You have to build your way up. Some people will get gains faster, but it's crazy. I get it though. It's that you have to kind of have that chip on your shoulder to keep rising. You know what I'm saying? So I do get that.
Yeah. It and it's tough, right? It's tough, like what you're saying. Was it difficult for you? I mean, I know you blew out your freaking bicep, right? Like you had some real major injuries. Um, and I know I've noticed just because I'm kind of like you, not as much, but I've done the multi-sport thing. I ran a marathon, just one. I ran a number of half marathons, and I ran an ultra marathon on my own, just by myself. But
Yeah.
that stuff, coupled with I was in the Forest Service for a couple of years, a wildland firefighter,
Yeah.
and I've I competed in strongman too at a lot less level than you, but I've done all these different things, and I've really noticed the wear and tear on the body, and that's how challenging that is. And how's that been for you? Like, and how did you deal with that mentally and stuff? It seems like you've come to grips with it really well.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I mean, what are you gonna do? You can't change the way your body's reacting. Like, what am I gonna do about it? I'm like, I went as far as I could go. I'm happy that I was able to push myself to reach that potential. I mean, how many people, even the guys at the top of the world, some of those guys aren't pushing themselves to their absolute limit. They're holding back a little bit. So I never did, uh, and I went as far as I could go. So I mean, I can't be mad. There's nothing more I could do, and so it's like I had to change. Like, I'm not going to live in the past, and I'm not going to feel sorry for myself and think, well, I didn't achieve my goal. I'm like, I look at the big picture, and I'm like, I think back to when I first started, and I'm like, all I ever wanted when I first started was to be big and strong anyway, and I've achieved that. And so being a champion athlete was a motivation that sparked in me later. It wasn't the main goal in the very beginning. So I look back at the main goal in the very beginning. It was just to be big and strong. And the competing was a way to get me to see my truest potential. It kept me focused and got me to see how far I really could push myself. And then otherwise, I probably wouldn't have done it like most people. But because I wanted to see if I could be a pro or if I could be a world-class athlete, the only way for me to do that is to try as hard as possible every time, and to try new things. And you just never know what you're going to be good at, because I never knew that I would be good at arm wrestling, and arm wrestling has been good for me because, my body couldn't withstand the pounding of strongman for more than 13 years. I got 13 years out of my competitive career, and I've also been able to continue to train it, at a smaller level, but I still train it. So that's a pretty good career. A lot of pro strongmen don't even last 5 years. So I got 13 years, and then and I'm moving on to other things. I'm happy, like I'm happy that I was able to train myself and prepare myself for this time period, because I knew it would. It's like you got to trust your body, man. Your body is gonna, and your body and your mind are gonna tell you, and your spirit, it's gonna let you know when you're coming to your end. Because I felt it coming in 2016. I felt it coming. I felt like I don't know how much more I got left in me. And by 2018, it was over. And so I had a couple of years to prepare myself. Okay, what are you going to do after strongman? I'm gonna keep arm wrestling because that doesn't hurt my body. It just hurts my elbows, and I can deal with that better than my back and my knees and my hips all hurting at the same time, and sometimes my shoulder. This is just an arm, so I'm like, I can handle that better. So I can keep competing. I can keep training hard. I have a reason to keep training hard, to keep my body strong, but I don't have to demolish myself and prepare to compete against other beasts in strongman or powerlifting, which, these are full body exercises, and it's for, you got to be genetically gifted, and it's really for it's a young man's sport. There are some guys that are still doing it even in their 50s, but they're genetic specimens. Not everybody can do that, and it's probably not a good idea for people to try to do that uh, outside of their peak, to try to keep going when they shouldn't. There's a life cycle that we have to respect and deal with and move on to new life. So if we're gonna have new life in other things, we can take the lessons we learned from our previous, like my strongman life, and insert it into my arm wrestling life, or insert it into my school life. That's what I did with the military. When I got out of the military, I inserted all that knowledge and all that mental toughness into my strength training, and that's what got me to do all the things that I've been able to accomplish. Was the lessons I learned from the military, and now all the lessons I've learned from strength training and all these different sports, and how I've diversified myself, I'm now taking into schooling, and I have new passion for school, and my business, and you know what I'm saying? It just evolves. You would continue to evolve. You just got to be aware of it, and allow it to happen. Don't fight the evolution that you're meant to be on.
Yeah. What about the running? Like, how do you get into that? Like,
Oh, I did that because I was supporting my girlfriend, and I just wanted to. She told me she ran an ultra marathon, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this little person, like, could withstand that kind of like, had that kind of toughness in her, and I was like, I got to know what it feels like. I got to know what it feels like because if she could do it, I got to do it, because she had a hard time with lifting, but she could run a marathon. And I was like, how the fuck can you? I was like, how can you take that kind of pain, but you can't deal with the soreness of a set of 10 on the squats, you know? And so, because it's different. And so when I did it, I was like, holy cow, dude, two different worlds, man. But what impressed me was the her ability to withstand pain. So I just wanted to be, I wanted to do that with her. I wanted her to see what I look like when I'm in pain in person, and how I deal with it. And I wanted to see how she dealt with it. And so it was really because of that.
and you
Because
said
I have not ran, I don't really run anymore. And, it was for that experience, I believe.
And you said you were still lifting, right? But you just run like on once a week or something. Just go
Yeah,
on.
that's all. I didn't. I just ran when I ran with when I would train with Lourdes, we would run. I would run 2 or 3 times a week with her, but I still lifted. I mean, I never stopped lifting. I just added it to it. That's why I got so lean. Because I was adding all this extra work into my schedule that I hadn't previously done, so I was burning a lot of calories. So I got pretty lean during that time period. I got down to 220. Um, but I bounced back from that. I got really big again after that, and now I'm working to get lean again. So my goals are constantly changing and stuff. I like to be lean. I want to see my abs, and then sometimes I want to be really strong. So the goals change.
I remember when Ryan and I went up to your gym, you told me that you said you had just done like 3 sets of 30 with 315 in the squats and ran like 10 miles or something. And I was like, what? And you like could barely walk. You're like all sore, but
Yeah.
your legs looked like they were like blown up. Like they were like swole.
Yeah, man. I like to do crazy workouts. Like things that nobody else would think would think to do, because I'm like, it's the challenge. I'm like, I get tired of doing regular old squats. That's not challenging to me, like I need something. I need to make a challenge. I need to make something, a workout that's like a life or death challenge. I got to do this or else I'll die, like, or something like that. And I got to do this because I may not ever have the chance to do it again. That's another motivation that I remind myself of. Because this could be the last day I ever get a chance to do something like this, and I want to feel it all the way, like I want to push myself as hard as I think I can handle. And I could go further. I hit a goal and I stop there. I achieve a goal and I'm like, all right, that's good. Like, I've done a yoke walk with 400 pounds for a mile. Um, I do stuff like that. I take the strongman stuff and I do more functional type of exercising. Like, oh fuck, my buddy fucking broke his leg and I'm a mile in the woods. I got to carry him out. I got to develop my body and mind to be able to do that shit. I need that kind of strength and endurance someday. And so I always lift like that, whether I train or not. That's why I'm always ready, man.
Always ready. And
Gotta always
so
be ready, dude. You never
that
know when you need it.
if anyone wants to see that footage is actually on a documentary. My buddy Ryan, that's what we were there for. Ryan Haggard, he filmed a documentary, Gameness. It's on YouTube. If you just go to Haggard Visions, it's really cool. It's like Will's whole story in his gym, and then mine too. So I thought that was great.
After this.
What's
I'll
that?
post. I have it in my YouTube. I'll post it again on my Facebook after this.
Yeah, yeah, that was awesome, man. I thought that was so cool. That was a fun experience too. Like just the whole, going from like watching you on YouTube. And I was there at your fight too. I think I told you that before, but
Yeah,
I was there, man. I met you, and I remember you were just like, "Yeah, baby, yeah, baby," and you're like freaking pumped afterwards. And I was like, "Hey, dude, I seen you on YouTube," and you were like, "Yeah, Ultra Beast."
Holy cow, man, that's crazy. I was out of it, dude. You know how it is. You're
You
so
were,
happy you get out of it.
yeah, yeah. I was watching it. I was actually right there with Ben, the promoter, Scoggins. I was hanging out with him while we
Oh
were
yeah.
watching the fight, and then I think you came up to talk to him, and then I was like, "Hey, man, I freaking follow you on YouTube,"
Right on. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't remember, man. I was out of it. That I don't remember. I just remember how good it felt and I remember how tired I was when it was all over. When I knew I have to be on lit at 100%. I was so tired. It took me like a half hour to catch my breath, dude.
Yeah,
You know how that is.
the adrenaline crash.
Yeah.
It,
And then I was really tired. I had to work that night, so I went to work that night, and then Um, I was really, yeah. I had to. That's another thing a lot of people probably don't know is that I worked after every contest I ever did that very night. So I drive sometimes 5 hours to get home to be in time for work after every
Wow,
contest.
that's
The fight,
insane.
including the fight. I worked after the fight. I had to be to work at 10, and I was the first fight of the night, so I was done by 7 or 8, something like that, and I was off to work. I got to work right on time, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I worked at 10. Yeah, that's something too. I took it seriously, like it meant a lot to me. It was about pride. Competing to me was about pride, pushing myself, um, and competing against other people that were doing the same thing. Being around other people that were like sacrificing in their life and pushing themselves. So I like those type of people.
Yeah, that's man, that's hardcore. That adrenaline dump, I think, is it's one of the just craziest things ever because like you just have nothing left afterwards. And I
Yeah.
used to when I was in the Forest Service, actually, that's why I think I'm kind of an adrenaline guy because when I was in the Forest Service and we had a fire and there's like 30-foot trees on fire right in front of your face and you're digging line or you're cutting trees out of the way, throwing them out of the way. I would get so amped. I'd feel just like amazing, like I'd feel like superhuman. And
Yeah.
then I remember one fire I was on. We were on the initial attack like that, and when you first go to a fire, your first shift it could be as long as it needs to be.
Hmm.
We ended up having this huge adrenaline rush on the initial attack, and then we worked for 38 hours straight, and it turns up to where you're just like patrolling or something, or you're just like, you know what I mean? You're just making sure that the fire doesn't jump your line. But I would be so tired, like I just felt like I was gonna die.
Wow. Yeah.
After
That's
that,
how I felt in the military.
and it's more brutal after, right? Like you're talking about like how hardcore the fight was, but probably that shift was probably like harder because it's just like you've got to keep working and you're just like all I want to do is go to sleep.
Yeah, no doubt.
So the thing I always wrap these things up with, it's kind of become the trend, is I just ask people about their I already know you believe in God, so I'm not gonna ask you that. But like what is your relationship with God like, and what how's that play into everything? And if you could just talk about that a little bit. You're talking about spiritual, everything being spiritual, but um how about your walk with God, and how's that going, and what does that mean to you, and how does it connect to your journey?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. Like we were talking about, as you get older, you change, and you start to feel the spiritual side of life, like there's a reason we're all different from each other and we're not like machines. We're animals, but we have instinct, but we also have this thing called consciousness where we understand things that animals don't understand. Animals don't know what day of the week it is. They don't know what the difference between 12 o'clock a.m. and p.m. is. They just know day and night, and what it takes to survive. We know how to flourish. We know how to develop like surplus of things. We can build things. So there's this like, because of this consciousness, there becomes the spiritualism that you start to develop, and in order to keep giving your best, I feel like that requires like a spiritual like effort. You have to develop yourself spiritually, which means you got to spend time uh, alone working on you. You know, I don't I don't maybe do the way I feel about life, and it's a little different maybe than what other people might think, but I believe in energy, in good energy. And energy is what drives us. There's bad energy and you can get sucked into that. And an example would be like complaining all the time. You're allowing yourself to, if you're always complaining, and you're not giving gratitude, you're not expressing gratitude, that means you're in a negative world, in a negative side of life, and you're going to continue to experience negativity. But if you're in a positive frame of mind, which requires practice, it's just like working out. You got to put effort into it. It doesn't just happen every day. I don't just wake up with a smile on my face every day. Well, I do. Well, the days that I don't, it's all about practicing. Like, hey, I'm grateful for how far I've come based on where I first started. I remember when I first started, where I was at there, I would have traded anything to be where I'm at now. So I look at things in more of that kind of sense where I'm like, the people around me, I feel lucky that I get an opportunity to do something like this, and that's because of the life I've been living, the choices that I've made and continue to make. And so, this, like I practice gratitude a lot, every day, every night. I pray and I say, I give thanks for everything that I have, everything that I've been blessed to been given, like this path that I'm on, like these gifts of strength that I have and the mindset that I have, that's a gift. That's something that is like kind of like divine. We all have our gifts, and it's up to each of us to develop them and then to share them. Like what you've been doing, like you're now creating podcasts to share with people so you can share this knowledge. First it was the books, then it's helping other people accomplish their dreams, and then it's now getting these people that you respect together and learning, like having these conversations, learning and then sharing. So I feel like a big part of this is spiritual because that's a part of it's like part of us. This need to contribute to society, and to contribute what we know and our knowledge to help other people so that maybe they can go further and have an easier time doing it. They can bypass the struggles that we had to deal with, and they can deal with more high class struggles. Like how are they gonna, how are they gonna put 30 people to work? That kind of struggle, like versus how am I gonna get myself out of this mess, kind of thing. So that comes from, I believe, being in touch with the spiritual side, the side that's beyond the body. You know what I'm saying? And for everybody, that's different. So, um, you know, like I said, I look at trying to keep a high energy field around me. So if I can't be around high energy people, then I get on YouTube and I watch high energy videos to keep my energy high, and to keep me reminded of what's important and what's good in life, and to keep striving to achieve these goals, to show other people that that is how you make it, is the consistency, and the motivation changes every day. So that has got to be cultivated and worked, just like the weight training or just like the rep, like doing your homework. You know, you don't learn unless you work. You know what I'm saying? Your body doesn't learn to get stronger unless you force it, you give it a reason to. So if you don't do your homework, you don't get smarter. If you don't lift your weights, your muscles don't grow. You know what I'm saying? So, and I believe that, the way you get the most out of yourself is by maintaining a good relationship within yourself and about the world around you, and, so, that's where I like that's how I feel, is that this energy, like this good energy vibe, good energy vibes. Um, because I don't know how much you look into the like self-help and motivation and inspiration and stuff, but I like what Bob Proctor talks about when he discusses us as being like vibrations. We're like energy vibrations, and we vibrate in different tunes, and so we can sense that off of the way we interact with each other, and if you're vibing at a high rate, things are going really well, like you're being blessed. And so you want to try to, and you can keep that high rate going as long as you're doing those things, like maintaining like what was that word that I used to describe gratefulness. You know, I think that's the biggest thing, is just remembering to be grateful for what you have and for the dream that's in your mind and in your heart that you're striving to achieve, you know.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, I probably haven't studied as much as you, but I've always been a very intuitive person, you know, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what you're talking about vibrations. I've always kind of listened to that, you know, the kind of vibe you get from somebody when you meet them or you're around them. There's certain people I just avoid them because I just don't have a good vibe. You know, if I don't have a good vibe, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna avoid you and try to not talk to you and just leave.
Minimize the interaction.
Yeah, and then there's other people you could vibe, and it's like, oh, this is good.
Yeah,
You
no
know?
doubt. We're learning from each other.
So you got a good vibe, my friend.
Thanks, man. You do too.
So yeah, thanks for coming on here, man. This is awesome. I think this was a great one. This is probably my favorite one, maybe so far, that I've done. And we'll have you on again, man. Pete, last minute, you know, he I don't want to say why he couldn't make it, but he couldn't make it.
Man. You don't have to explain. It's okay. There's always a reason, and it's all good because everybody's reasons are legitimate. So there'll be more times. You know, I ain't going nowhere, man. So we're just gonna keep getting better and better.
We'll have you on again, and let's see. Next week we got the Forsaken Warrior, Steve Johnson, on. That guy's pretty freaking crazy and awesome. So I'm looking forward to that one. And yeah, we'll have you on again, hopefully pretty soon, man.
Right on, cool.
So thanks, Bill.
Man.
I
Thanks for having
appreciate it, my brother.
All right, man.
Signing out.
Right.